Okay, it looks like we have everyone here joining us, so thank you very much. Welcome to our webinars on the Pinellas Cares Local Business Grants. Today, we'll be walking through the eligibility and an overview of the grant programs. Today's seminar will last about 30 minutes, and once we've completed the overview, we'll address your questions. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see a Q&A section there, and that's how we'll address your questions. And what we'll do is we'll read them out live, and then we'll have Mike answer the questions that you have. After that, we'll also make sure that we ask for any telephone questions that we might have too. So today, we are going to end our session at 1 o'clock after our questions end. And what I'd like you to keep in mind today is that we'll be addressing today the overview as well as the eligibility for the Pinellas Cares Local Business Grants. In our future webinars that I hope you all join us for, we'll have one tomorrow at 2 o'clock where we'll discuss the financial documentation available and what you'll need to apply, because you'll want to gather those documents before you begin your application. And that will be tomorrow, September 11th at 2 o'clock. On Tuesday, September 15th at 10 a.m., we will concentrate on how to submit a complete application. Complete applications will speed you through the approval process and the review process, and Mike will be walking through how you complete that application. So once we've also completed the 3 webinars, we will have these available on YouTube for all of our applicants to go back and review at their leisure and learn more about the programs. Thank you for joining us today for the overview. I'd like to introduce my boss and the Director of Pinellas County Economic Development, Mike Meidel. Mike will be our subject matter expert today. Again, thanks for joining us, and I'll turn it over to Mike.
Great. Thank you all for joining us today, and look forward to the launch of this new program. We've been actually operational since August the 31st and have received over 1,000 applications already. Another 1,000 applications are in the process of being entered by applicants at this time. Fortunately, we've looked at the data based on the eligible NAICS codes that we have assigned to this grant program, and we feel confident that we'll have plenty of money for to be able to process every business of the proper size and NAICS code within the county. So there's no hurry in entering the data. The most important thing and the fastest way to get money into the hands of the business people is to encourage folks to fill out a complete application, to provide all the necessary documentation, to fill out all of the items within the application itself. That will get you faster to your goal of getting that money than just trying to be the first one in the line to hit submit. Because if we have to go back and get additional information, that's going to take a lot more time for you and for the reviewers. So keep that in mind, take your time, gather all the information you need, gather the documents that you'll have to attach, and that's the fastest way to get money into the hands of the business people. The first round is closed, and we've processed every application at this point. We had over 5,200 applications fully submitted. 3,249 of those were considered eligible and did receive a $5,000 grant. So that's over $16.2 million now in the hands of business people, using that to pay their employees and to make purchases in the local economy. So that money is being spread out in multiple transactions throughout the community, and we want to continue that. And part of what we're doing in this second round of grants is expanding the eligibility of the both larger businesses and smaller businesses will now be eligible in this second round of grants. Wanted to also, at the very beginning here, talk about the various other pots of money that are out there, the other grant programs that are available to citizens of Pinellas County, and then we'll come back and focus more exclusively on those business categories. But we are continuing the Individuals and Families program, and this is assistance where we would pay the rent or mortgage or utility bill payments on behalf of people who've lost jobs or have significantly reduced hours as a result of COVID. And that is still handled through the 211 reporting system. And again, the amount of money has been raised, so each household is eligible for up to $5,000 of assistance from now through December 30th. The applications need to be in early because we have to have all the money out the door by December 30th. But again, there's plenty of time here. You can reapply if you're still in trouble and you need help with an additional month's worth of billing. As long as you haven't gone above that $5,000 cap, you're still eligible. And then beyond that, we have a whole program we're operating through the Pinellas Community Foundation that's $30 million that's set aside for our nonprofit agencies that are assisting with feeding programs, with homelessness, providing housing for people that were affected by COVID, with behavioral health issues, addiction and other behavioral issues, and with the legal issues associated with evictions. So as the rules change and Treasury changes and the state changes the waivers on evictions, we'll see more of that activity, and we will be able to provide legal assistance through those nonprofit organizations. Then we're also working with CareerSource Pinellas to provide money for employers to hire people that were either laid off as a result of COVID or had significantly reduced hours. It will be similar to the on-the-job training and the paid work experience programs, where we'll come alongside and pay several months of salary for these new hires, and that payment will be made to the employer. And then we also have, in that same program, money available to people who've lost their jobs and want to go through training programs to learn new skills and find a new job and a new career. So that will be also available through the CareerSource program. Then we already have launched a program with our child care agencies, and we have $5 million set aside for this. And every licensed child care agency in Pinellas County, everyone licensed with the state, will receive a grant based upon the capacity of their operations. So if it's a home-based business with only 6 children, you'll have one amount, and if it's YMCA or our club or other similar after-school program, it'll be significantly more. But that's all available and is being processed through the Early Learning Coalition, and they are reaching out directly to everyone who is licensed. So everyone who is qualified will receive a touch from ELC. So there's no need to apply for that. They'll come to you. Then, really looking at the public health emergency, we are providing funds to the Department of Health and other agencies for things like testing and primarily they're looking at the positivity rates of testing here and contact tracing. So if we do come across with a positive case, we can, the Department of Health will track down everyone that person has been in touch with and make those notices and help people to get the help they need and to avoid spreading the virus any further. And then finally, we do have money available for municipalities. The first group of money for that will go out for a local match that's required by the FEMA reimbursement policy. 12.5% of the total FEMA money has to be matched locally. The federal government has allowed us to use these federal dollars for that local match. So that money will go out first, and then we'll look at other municipal needs. Now I'd like to turn to those local business grants in greater detail and talk about the various types of grants that we have available. As I mentioned earlier, we're allowing smaller businesses than ever before to apply. In the first round, you had to have at least $17,000 worth of business receipts in order to qualify. Now you can qualify with as little as $4,250 in 2019 funds. And you'll have to prove that through a tax document, through your business taxes, whether it's a Schedule C or an 1120, or even now on the individual returns, because some of these micro businesses, some of these, especially the ones that are under 17,000 a year, are just reporting their business income as part of their individual tax return. So for those micro grants, we will be working directly with either Creative Pinellas, which is our arts agency here in Pinellas County, for anyone related to as an artist or a performer or an arts related business. We'll be able to apply through, you would apply through the one portal for everything. That's what's beautiful about this current system. There's one online application, and then those grants are referred to the other agencies as appropriate. So the basic sliding scale grants will be between $2,500 and $10,000. And those are for the incomes of the $17,000 or up to $3 million in gross annual revenues. And that will be, there are various scales in there. And when you hit a certain level, you'll go to a next higher award level. But then what I was talking about with the business diversity and arts microgrants, these are be referred to those agencies, to Creative Pinellas, and then our micro business diversity grant provider is the Tampa Bay Black Business Investment Corporation. And they have staff that will be working with these smaller companies and companies that don't have all of their financial documents together, and be able to work with you to produce those documents and to be eligible for both a cash grant and, in the case of the business diversity grants, to be able to receive funding, actual professional services. Things like working with a CPA or working with a lawyer to set up a particular corporation or an LLC, or working with things like learning how to use QuickBooks or developing a marketing plan or a business plan. So up to $1,000 of professional services can be provided to these small businesses in addition to the cash grants. And then finally, there is the health and safety matching grants. These are available to our target industry businesses, and those are manufacturers, financial services, information technology companies, call centers, corporate headquarters. These are the types of businesses that can apply for funding for anything they did within their physical environment to prepare for COVID and for social distancing, to keep their employees safe and to be able to operate. And this could be the partitions, the plexiglass partitions you see now in retail stores. Many of the call centers have had to do that. Manufacturing firms have had to do that. Actual physical walls, if you've redone your office to provide more physical barriers. The other thing you can look at are the UV lights put into air conditioning systems or modifications to the systems to bring in more outside air. The electrostatic sprayers for cleaning purposes, the personal protective equipment that you would be buying for your employees. And what you'll do is simply submit all of your receipts, and the program will pay up to $10,000 in matching funds. So half of whatever receipts you submit, up to $10,000, could be covered by this program. And again, that is the same portal. You get in the same way as you would for the sliding scale grants and as you would for the micro grants. In the case of the sliding scale grants, if you've applied under the previous round and received money, if you have more than $250,000 in gross receipts during the 2019 tax year, you're eligible for additional funds. So you will need, unfortunately, you'll need to have to go in and reapply. It's a smaller application than the previous round, and there's less documentation required, but you will have to go back into the portal, put in this new application with your 2019 information, and you'll be eligible for additional funds as long as you had more than $250,000. If you had less than that, then you've already received the maximum that you can receive from the Pinellas Cares program at this time. We talked about the fact that now home-based businesses are eligible. So in the previous round, you had to have a physical storefront. This time around, you just have to be physically located in Pinellas County, either in your home or at a co-working space, or maybe at a garage workshop that's around available in the area. What we won't allow is someone who's located outside of Pinellas County and just works virtually in Pinellas County, or comes in with trucks and services the citizens of Pinellas County, even though their business is outside. So the business owner of a business that's located in Pinellas County can live anywhere, but the business itself has to be in Pinellas County. And we won't allow like a P.O. box at a UPS store or a public storage facility that's only for storage and not for doing business. Those will not be legal addresses. But if you live here or you have a physical place of business here, you are qualified in this round. I think those are the big issues on the local grants program. And then the micro diversity program is really designed, especially the diversity grants through the Tampa Bay Black Business Investment Corporation. If you have not applied for taxes in the past for your business, or have just rolled them into your individual returns in the past, and you need help in developing a separate business tax return, that part of that $1,000 worth of assistance will enable you to get help from a CPA to actually complete a business tax return. And you can either file for an extension with the IRS or even submit an amended return based on the CPA's assistance. Now, it's important to remember that all of that assistance is capped at $1,000. So if like you reach out to a lawyer and work with them and reach your $1,000 cap on setting up your business articles of incorporation or whatever, anything additional will be up to you to pay as a business owner. So there is that $1,000 cap, but that is designed to make sure that there's enough money to go ahead and get a CPA to finish your tax return if you've never done that in the past. I believe that's the basic overview. What I'd like to go through now is look at the eligible business types, and available on our website. And the key to finding all of this information is to go to www.pced.org/cares. And that will get you to a portal page that will have a link to the actual application process. It has a link to our frequently asked questions, and it has this link to our eligible industry list. So if your business appears on this list, you will be eligible for the grant if you have the other documentation and meet all the other requirements. So this helps you a little bit to identify the types of businesses, and I just want to run through them briefly so you've got an idea, and then during the Q&A period we can take a look. If you feel that your company didn't appear on this list and should, we can help you through it to help you identify the proper NAICS code or explain why it wasn't included in this round. First of all, we were looking at our food manufacturers. And the eligible manufacturers in food industries are those who really do provide their product to the local retail stores. So these are like the ice cream and custard and yogurt, frozen yogurt companies that serve the local marketplace, chocolate manufacturers, candy manufacturers, some coffee and tea like Kawa Coffee serves pretty much a local marketplace now. They are expanding, but other coffee roasters that serve that local marketplace, those are the types of businesses that are eligible. Other manufacturers are eligible under the target industry grants, but not under the sliding scale grants. Same is true now with the beverage manufacturing. All of our breweries and wineries and distilleries are considered manufacturing, but obviously they're a little different animal. They often have tasting rooms, and they were eligible in round one and continue to be eligible in round two. The printing and sign making, we did allow to be eligible in round one. In round two, they don't have to have that physical retail location. So the difference here is those companies that are preparing t-shirts and apparel, the screen printing of that, the embroidery, the types of companies that do specialty items and promotional items. They print your logo on a cozy or a backpack or any type of promotional item. Those are now eligible whether they have a retail storefront or not. And then under the durable goods wholesalers, now we're entering a new area where previously you had to be a retailer. Now we're allowing those industries that sell to retailers. So these would be people providing, say, a home furnishing warehouse type operation that provides furniture to our retail stores. It would be photographic equipment, service equipment. So anybody who's selling like store fixtures or restaurant equipment, those kinds of things to our hotels or hospitality industry all now qualifies. So, and anyone selling goods directly to a retail store for resale, again, those will now qualify, and that greatly expands the eligible business load here. And the same is true of the non-durable goods. So the apparel, the beer and wine distributors now that distribute to our restaurants and bars are eligible under this round. Obviously the florist suppliers, the florists have always been eligible. Now, if you're a supplier to a florist, you're eligible. Going into the retail trade sector, these were all eligible in the first time around. The difference here is now primarily that larger firms are eligible. So up to $3 million in gross revenues are now eligible. We've broadened the category in the pets area now. So if you're boarding pets or you're providing pet supplies or say leashes or toys for pets, those kinds of things are now completely eligible. Auction houses are a category now that are eligible. They were warehouse type locations in many cases, but now you can't. People who conduct their auctions entirely online are not eligible, but if you do in-person auctions in a normal non-COVID environment, then you would be eligible for this. Looking at transportation now, we've broadened those categories. The Clearwater Ferry, for example, ferry services and water taxis are now eligible. The limo services are eligible, and these would have to be like the airport limos or limos that are reserved in advance, a separate limousine company. Many of these kind of border on the charter bus industry as well, depending on the size of the vehicle. But it's only those businesses that work directly with the hospitality industry and cater largely to tourists. So taxis and Uber and those types of individual call transportation are not eligible. But the group travel that serves that tourism and hospitality industry is now eligible. Going a little further down the road here, the publishing, motion picture and recording industry. This is very broad. Pretty much anybody in motion picture and recording will now be eligible, along with those who publish business directories, mailing lists, catalogs, and periodicals, magazines, and so on. If you're producing a product in print, you are now eligible for the funding. And this that's new and broader category. Looking at rental, a lot of these were eligible the first time around. The difference here now is that we previously required that retail operation. Now you can be operating these rentals out of a warehouse here in Pinellas County, and the customer would typically interact with you maybe online, and you would deliver the goods from your warehouse. But the goods have to be for, again, the hospitality or the event industry, or in the case of general rental centers like, U-Rent or Rental Hall or any errand rents and those kinds of things, those are eligible now and can be applied under the second round. Looking at the service category now, the interior design and graphics design services were eligible the first time around, but again, now it's eligible if you're home-based or if you have a warehouse location rather than a retail-like location. Under the computer services, we're pretty restrictive here. This would be only if you're installing, say, server farms or network systems and routers for a company, and where you would be required to be on site. And during the COVID crisis, that business would have been shut down or would have had limited staff, and you wouldn't have been able to do that. So that's the impact, and those limited computer service jobs could be eligible. Looking at other services, again, that those advertising specialties and promo items and sign lettering and welcome services and so on are eligible. Photographic services are now any photographer, even if you're freelance working from home, is eligible under this round. Travel arrangements, these are the travel agents themselves, anyone putting on a trade show or an event. Anybody, a wedding planner, no longer has to have their own showroom space. They can operate out of their home, and that broadens that application. Now in the education category, pretty much anyone who sees students in a normal environment, sees them face to face, and would qualify. So these are people like the tutoring, the mathnasium, and those types of organizations that were eligible in phase one, but now it includes home-based tutoring services as long as you would have typically been face-to-face with the student. And that includes our trade and technical schools, fine arts schools, that includes sports instruction too, so tennis coaches and those kinds of things would now qualify, along with the driving schools and learning how to drive. Now, the healthcare is still limited entirely to acupuncture, massage, nutrition, and med spa. These would be health-related services, but provided only by non-MD, DO type staff. So if you're a doctor providing medical services in a clinic setting, you're still not eligible under round two. But those folks with acupuncture and massage that are doing that, even from a home-based business, now qualify. Performing arts, museums, and spectator sports, these are all qualified now. The difference is, and one thing to be careful of, is many of these are nonprofits, particularly on the museum side, that you still don't qualify as a nonprofit. But as a for-profit dance company, or an individual dance performer, or an actor or actress, or an artist or other visual art person could now qualify, even if they're operating out of a home studio rather than, say, a gallery space or a professional publicly available studio space. Amusement and recreation, these all qualified under round one, but again, hotels and motels are eligible in the second round. So what we'll see primarily are slightly larger hotels than would qualify under round one. So anybody with $3 million or less in revenues would qualify. Now this current round, B&Bs, Airbnb, and those individual condominium units, multiple condominium units, do not qualify. So the only accommodation facilities that qualify in this round are the actual hotels and motels and resorts that that have to register with the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. So that means a motel under the state regulations has to be at least 6 units. And a hotel has to be at least 25 units, but you'll know if you qualify because you've had to register and you get inspected by these units and so on. But that's a difference in round two. The B&Bs and the Airbnb individual facilities do not qualify. Now the campgrounds that sell as to transient rentals, So any RV park that sells for less than 6 months and campgrounds and those types of industries do qualify. And again, those are registered with hospitality industries. And then obviously we're continuing with all of the restaurants and bars and food service places. They do qualify now. Repair and maintenance is a fairly limited. We're looking at on the automotive body and paint and interior customizing. These are only the elective type things. This is like customizing your car or remodeling, renovating a 67 Chevy or whatever. That's eligible because it's elective. If you're just an auto body shop as part of a retail chain, or an auto dealer, you would not qualify. Car washes do qualify. They did in round one. Reupholstery and furniture repair, any footwear or leather goods repair, and all of the garment, watches, jewelry, musical instruments, those types of repairs do qualify. So tailors and alterations qualify. And then under personal services, again, all of our hair salons, nail salons, beauty salons do qualify. Now they can be home-based as well as being a storefront. Pet care, really now everything except for veterinary services, so anybody provided by a professional veterinarian would not qualify. And the big box PetSmart and similar facilities were allowed to remain open, and they will not qualify. But the boutique, smaller pet care stores and supply stores now qualify under the current system. And then very little photo finishing still going on out there, but there are people who do, actually develop film and do printing of photographs, and those qualify, along with those listed personal services like shoe shine and wedding planning, events planning, and dating services, professional fitness, personal fitness trainers, all do qualify. And I think that's the list that we've gone through right now. If there are, I want to open it up now to see if there are any questions about eligibility and see if we can answer those for you today.
Hey, Mike, I'll start with the questions that we have, and I am going to start with the first one that I see here. So the first question that we had, and it's been answered, but we're going to do it now on camera, is if you received a grant in the first round, are you still eligible for a grant now?
Yes, and you are, but you will have to reapply. And again, it will only benefit you if you've made more than $250,000 on your 2019 tax return. Everything in this round now goes and looks at that tax return. So you have to have a 2019 return. And if you happen to have one special case is if your tax year is other than the calendar year, say your 2019 tax year doesn't really end until October 1st of this year, then you would not have filed for your taxes yet. And you have 4.5 months, I believe, after the end of your tax year to actually file those statements. So you have really two choices if you're outside the normal tax year. You can complete your tax return and get it into us before December 1st and allow us time to process that. Or you can apply under the microgrant program, where you would provide us with your 2018 tax return along with a profit and loss statement for everything since that time. And they'll be able to work with you to document that. And unfortunately, it'll be a slightly reduced rate for the cash award, but when you don't have your completed return, those are the only two choices. So wait until you do complete your return for 2019, or take a slightly reduced amount and operate under the microgrant program.
Thank
But
you.
again, if you don't have at least $250,000 on the tax return, it won't benefit you to reapply.
Great. Thank you, Mike. Our second question is, what is the timeline once an applicant is approved? What is the timeline? I think they probably mean, what is the timeline for receiving funding once they are approved?
Yeah, once they are approved, it'll go fairly quickly. The clerk's office reviews that. They are saying within 10 business days, but in reality, it has usually been 3 to 5 days after you see that it's been submitted to the clerk's office. So when your status change is pending final audit, a payment pending final audit is the actual status. Once you see that, it'll probably be within 3 to 5 days that money will be on its way to you, but certainly within 10 business days. Now, initially in the early part of the process, again, just like before, a large number of applications come in very early in the process. And unfortunately, some of those, even though we say take your time and do it right, many of those don't have the required documentation. So it takes us longer to wade through those. And the initial few weeks, you're going to see it's going to take a couple of weeks for your application to be sent to a reviewer or sent to a secondary reviewer. And that's to be expected. As we go forward, that time period will shorten, and you'll see us being able to process them relatively quickly. But please give us several weeks right now, at least from the time you hit submit until you'll see that payment pending final audit.
Thank you. Our next question is, does an outpatient mental health practice qualify?
No, it does not. The governor's safer at home orders treated that as an essential business. They were allowed to remain open throughout. And just like any of those that are essential businesses, but whose customers perhaps made other choices due to COVID and decided not to meet or weren't comfortable doing it electronically. We will look at that if there are sufficient funds available later on in the process. We plan on looking at how quickly the money is being spent somewhere in that mid-October time range, and we may be able to broaden it. But right now, especially that category is not eligible because that service is essential and could continue to be provided electronically. And again, it wasn't covered under the governor's closure orders.
Excellent. Thank you. I believe that covered it, Mike. The question was that they were unable to utilize their offices, which we completely understand. So not under this round, but perhaps in future. Right.
And then, for that, because yes, maybe you weren't eligible to use your offices, but hopefully we could do that electronically. And in reality, we could have worked together with the sheriff's offices. You should be able to use a facility for a behavioral health or mental health issue. That was always an essential service. So we can work with you on that. But yeah, we'll look at it in the second round. But as of now, because of the closure orders being what they are, we can't provide grants in this round.
Thank you. We have another question. We have a participant here in our webinar, and they have a group home for boys ages 13 to 17 that they opened in March of this year. They did not see a category that they'd fall under and want to know if they would be eligible, please.
Yeah, they would not be eligible really for two reasons. One, that they opened after COVID began, which officially for all of our U.S. Treasury documents is anything that occurred after March 1st is considered affected by COVID. And when you open or you start a business after that date, it was assumed that you knew COVID existed and you had to operate accordingly. But beyond that, in this case, the group homes are not eligible unless they qualify as a registered child care agency with the state of Florida. And again, that the Early Learning Coalition would work with you on that. But yeah, they do not qualify under this round.
Thank you. We have another question. Does a nonprofit ballet school qualify under education? This potential applicant, also has the St. Petersburg Ballet Company, which is a performing arts company, and they are under the supervision of a nonprofit ballet school. Would this company be eligible?
Currently, the nonprofits are not eligible in any category except for those done through the Pinellas Community Foundation, so that homelessness and feeding. Anybody with a 990 tax return would immediately not be qualified. And that's currently it. And the biggest problem with nonprofits is that many nonprofits receive a lot of their money through charitable donations or through fundraisers or sponsorships, and not directly from program services. Now, we realize that in this case, you're getting a lot of your money through program services, and you just happen to be set up as an educational nonprofit. We will definitely look at that in mid-October if we have sufficient funds. That would be the only category of nonprofits that I would even remotely expect to be eligible. And it would be the 501c3s that are public charities that are actually providing good services, health-related, wellness-related type or educational services to the general public, and receive most of their income through program services and not through other sources that are available to nonprofits. They look more like a for-profit business because that program services component is a fee that you're receiving for a service you're providing. And so we will look at that, but right now, no, if you are a nonprofit with a 990 return, you are not eligible.
Thank you very much. We have a question about where can applicants get a copy of the list of qualified businesses. That's right on our website. If you go to pcd.org/cares, you'll be able to find the list of the qualified businesses under the NAICS codes on our website. We have another question. Aside from approval for funding, what is the turnaround time from submission of the application to response, review, approval? So it's a slightly different question from the one we had originally, Mike, regarding the time that they can receive a check. Do you want to walk us through just a short timeline?
Yeah, again, as I mentioned earlier, it really will take more. I would allow 2 to 3 weeks at least on the front end. By the time we're through this early backlog and we get to cleaner applications that tend to come in later in the process, that turnaround time should be a matter of 4 to 5 days rather than 2 to 3 weeks. But initially, it is going to take us several weeks to work through all of the applications. Now that will depend on how complete the application is, and really that is the key right there. If you've completed the application and put in all the required documentation, it'll definitely go faster.
Thank you. We have about 4 more questions. So our next question is, how do the funds arrive? Is it a check? Is it direct deposit? How can the applicants expect to receive their funding?
Oh, perfect. Yes, it will be a check, a paper check, and it'll be delivered to the mailing address that you put into the application under the W-9 section. So you'll see that section on the application form itself. This time we don't have you submit your own W-9. It actually walks you through box by box and helps you fill out that W-9 information. But the mailing address you put in that section is where you will receive the check.
Great, thank you very much. And I hope everyone will join us on Tuesday when Mike will be will be walking us through filling out that application. So I hope we can have you all back at that point. We have 3 more questions, and then we'll get to anyone who might have their hand up or our phone questions at that time. Do yoga studios fall under the category of fitness centers?
Yes, that's an easy one. So they would qualify.
Perfect. Are home-based travel agencies included in the eligibility for this grant? They were impacted by the travel bans.
Yes, so the travel agencies are a listed NAICS code, and you can now do it as a home-based business, so that would qualify.
Thank you. One last question we have in the Q&A. A St. Pete company that has always operated remotely, they train nurses for licensing exams. Would this company be eligible?
If you've always operated remotely, then the feeling is you could continue to operate remotely. So that would be the problem with applying under that grant. You would not be eligible. Also, in some cases, these would be nonprofits. So if you're a nonprofit, it would not be eligible. What we're trying to do with educational services categories is to address people who normally meet face-to-face with their students. And that's the criteria, and that's the priority for these grant programs.
Thank you, Mike. One last question we have from one of our friends in Tarpon Springs. A local business asked if there is a hard copy application. They do not have access to the internet.
Okay, what we're doing there, and we have a navigators program. We are working with some of the nonprofits and chambers of commerce in the area to help people to step through the application process if they don't have their own computers. And what you can do is, and I think we'll look for a way to provide you that navigators, that list of potential navigators. Stacy can get that to you. Or through the chat function, or we'll get back out with the information. But these organizations, people like the Beaches Chamber of Commerce is one that I know of that we have worked with already. You can fill out that paper application and sign it and take it to one of these navigators. They'll scan it for you and attach it to the application so that you will be able to apply even if you don't have your own computer equipment. But we'll get you that last list of navigators. And we are looking for help. Folks on this call today are interested in, you run a nonprofit organization or a community organization and are willing to help people through the process of applying. Please let us know. We actually have a Survey Monkey that we use for registration purposes, and we'll include you in some weekly Zoom calls to bring everybody up to date on how to assist people in filling out those applications. And then I'd say tune in next Tuesday when we go through the application step by step, and you'll see exactly what we need. And we'll try to have, at least by that time, a way to download a paper form that you could fill out and provide to one of these navigating agencies.
Great. Mike, thank you. I wanted to close the loop on the list of navigators. You can find that on our website at pced.org/cares, C-A-R-E-S. If you scroll down to the bottom of the page, it says Application Assistance, and there you can click to find a list of our navigators. Right now, I'd like to ask, thanks, Mike. I'd like to ask if we have any more questions, and particularly if we have anyone joining us on the phone who would like to ask a question, if you could hit *6, that will allow us to see you, unmute you, and answer your question. I'll give a moment for anyone who would like to do that, please. Okay, I do not see any additional questions. We had someone with their hand up originally, but I do not see it now. So I think for today, we are at 12:55. And if there's nothing further, we will end the webinar, but I will remind you that we'll be back tomorrow talking about the documentation that you'll need in order to apply. We'd like you to gather all your documents and have them available first. So I'll invite everyone to join us tomorrow, September 11th at 2 o'clock. You'll use the same link that you used to get in today. Thank you very much. Hope we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.